And that's exactly what we're doing today. Lullingstone Roman Villa. Now, Lullingstone is a site that has followed me through the years, because the guy who manages the excavations at Lullingstone decided to pack in his job with the Glamorgan Grant Archaeological Trust because of the way he was treated. And then he decided to start excavating at Lullingstone. And him and his wife are a partnership excavating at Lullingstone every year. And again, it's another partnership of love that people have for the past. And it's a project that will go on for many years, just like Binchester, just like Sedgeford, just like Butser. All these projects continue because of family. Butser continued because of Paul Reynolds' wife. So you know these are projects that endure, and they endure to help us understand areas of the past that hitherto wouldn't have been properly understood. And what we understand by that now is that if we look at last week's lecture and we looked at Butser, we looked at the way how roundhouses are constructed. Except guess who was lucky to stay in a roundhouse on the weekend? Me. And guess about one of the things I realised in this roundhouse. One, that when you I could actually show you this. We're going to just go off piece a minute. I just want to show you something I've learnt by actually living history. And if we look at...
Did you have a bracken and hay-filled palliasse with lots of creepy crawlers in?
I know what the hell that is. No, I didn't. So you're looking inside the roundhouse, for example. In this roundhouse, the outside walls were here, right? The upright timbers to support the roof actually came to here, not bypassing these timbers and then going out to have the outside wall against the eaves of the roof and down to the floor. And we worked out quite effectively that if you live in a building that in fact the wall is actually put up against these internal timbers, the building heats up. I can remember Michelle woke up in the morning. She went outside. There was actually toilet. What can I describe? Dry toilets outside. So by the time she'd gone outside and come back in, we had a detector on the floor with us, and it was 18 degrees C. And by the time she got back in 5 minutes, I managed to heat up the room by 4 degrees. There's no way could you do that with a modern home. And it's simply because the heat was rebounding off these panels and coming straight back into the room. Now, if the heat had been rebounding off these panels, they wouldn't have come back in the room quicker, and therefore the building would be a lot colder. So I do believe that maybe these types of reconstructions are completely wrong. And what we did find with this building was that then the timbers that support the roof eaves, you would access little compartments from outside for timber and all the rest of it, rather than these being accessible from inside. And I found that to be a lot more effective structure than the reconstructions at Butser. And that's only because I'd actually stayed in a building like that.
Except you were doing it in the summer.
Yes, I was doing it in the summer, but have you ever stayed in a building like this? It's not...
You'd want it warmer in the winter.
Pardon?
You'd want it warmer in the winter.
Well...
You wouldn't want holes to outside to get the fish.
Hang on a minute. It's just my interpretation. Okay.
Well, that's an easy way to get out of the question, isn't it?
It's good to get out the question. You know, I just wanted to give you an idea of my full frontal experience. Anyway, back to Lullingstone Roman Villa. Lullingstone Roman Villa was discovered in 1750. And when they discovered Lullingstone Roman Villa in 1750 is because they were putting a post in, and suddenly the ground gave way and it went through a mosaic and a hypocourse system. That's how they found the site. Very similar to the discovery of Binchester in the 1800s, where a farmer was going across a field and suddenly the ground gave way and that went through a hypocourse system as well. So these sites are discovered by complete accident. Down the road at Fishbourne as well. The way Fishbourne was discovered in the 1960s was simply because somebody was putting a post in and they couldn't work out the stuff that was coming out, i.e. bits of mosaic. So these sites are found by complete mistake and accident, and these types of sites are still around to be found. there was a Roman villa found at Lullingstone in Newport Way in 2001, 2002, and that was found by mistake as well. Lullingstone itself, lots of these sites, they're marvellous, they're wonderful. They give you a wonderful idea of the Roman past of our country, across the whole of our land. However, found by complete accident. So there's lots of Lullingstones out there still to be found. What they've got, as Kathy experienced with me in a damp room on the island of Rousey, we discovered the best sites, the best preserved sites are those sites that have a wonderful enclosed nature to them. On the island of Rousey, there was a burial chamber which had a very small aircraft hangar put above it to protect it. And it protected the sites, did it not, Kathy? Exactly. So the way to go is to protect sites and not allow them to be raped and pillaged by the elements out in the open, like the site at Kyamead, because that's being naturally damaged every single year by sheep grazing upon it, and so on and so on. But Lullingstone itself, it's an open site, and you can see it, and you can see it in its greatest glory. Lullingstone give us answers to early Christian religion in Britain, evidence that we can't get anywhere else. Kathy may stand behind me and marvel at the Roman temple of Llantwit that was converted into a church in the heart of Llantwit today. However, we presume it was converted into a church, because all pagan temples in Britain were converted into churches, as according to the historical record. But whether that actually happened or not is a bone of contention. You could argue with me that this wasn't a church, it remained a temple. How do we know it's a temple? But we do know at Lullingstone that there were two rooms at Lullingstone. One was used as a pagan nymphium, which is basically a little underground temple for the nymph gods. And then they erected a Christian church on the first floor on the site. And how do we know that? The Cairo de Chio Rio design that has survived from the painted frescoes at the site, which would only be associated with the Christian religion. So that's how we've got some of the first evidence of early Christianity at Lullingstone, dating Christianity back to at least 300 years AD in Roman Britain, or just thereabout, or just after. Christianity, like all religions, start off as a cult, just gets a bit big for its boots, and therefore becomes a religion. Define what a religion is, and we won't end this discussion today. So just a few sort of notes of interest. This is within the nymphium at the site, which is a subterranean basement room at Lullingstone. Yeah, members of the public can't get access to it because you can see it, right? It's there in front of you. And there's a well there, and no doubt people have been flinging their 1 pence and 5 and 2 pence pieces over there to the water deities at this wonderful site at Lullingstone. However, much more can be said than I've already said, naturally. Lullingstone Roman Villa, the main sense of the site, the main push for understanding the site, the main excavations at the site started to occur in 1949, and the swastika comes into its own vent today. 1949, the site was excavated. 3 beautiful swastikas on the floor of the main mosaic in the main dining room. If this was found in 1939, the swastikas would have been ripped out and disposed of and replaced with a new design. Not a fiction, but that actually happened. Any artefacts with swastikas in our museums in 1939 were either put into store or smashed up. And the swastikas at Lullingstone are not left-facing, but they are right-facing, the ones used by the Third Reich. So the fact of the matter is Lullingstone was spared the damage that would have been caused if it had been excavated 10 years earlier. We do have portraitures of 4 individuals, 3 surviving at Lullingstone, and they give you an impression and an idea, did they not, when we looked at the paintings that we saw at Butser, reconstructed last week. Again, giving you a picture and an idea to what these people looked like, giving you an idea to their loves, their hates, and everything else. By looking into somebody's eyes, you can get an idea, even if it's just a mosaic, you can get an idea what they dressed like, what their hair was like. just a little impression to the people who actually live there. Which is not often, we don't often find the meat on those bones. We've no idea how they breathed and how they thought, but just giving us a little bit of a clue gives us an idea to their muscle and maybe a little voice coming from the past. What you find this sort of wonderful galosh sort of interweaving wave around the outside, which is typical of the school of mosaic makers in Carinian, Cirencester. But then again, this is in Kent. And for wonderful Ellen, who isn't here today, which is a bit of a surprise, we do have a map showing exactly where Lullingstone is. We do actually look at these mosaics in a little bit more detail. But as for her, you can actually see that there's these are going to be the natural chalk-like tessera being used. Nice bit of tile being placed in there to give you the other colorants. This is going to be imported, that looks almost basalt in texture, so that's not local from Kent. So some of these other shadings and all the rest of it are thanks to the skill of the mosaic, the tessera maker in the first place. And there it is. We can't mistake that. Everything that we were taught of in school about early Christianity. This very design, the Cairo design or the Chirio design, or however you want to pronounce it, this was actually found in a fragmentary form at the wonderful Lullingstone site. You can't have any better proof than this of Christianity. This is the symbol of Christianity. If you find this anywhere, you know you're on a Christian site. You're in the gentleness of when Christianity was a gentle religion. You're into Christianity when women could be priests. You're into Christianity when everybody was meant to be equal within the Christian faith. This is when Christianity was pure. Roman Christianity was to be seen as pure, not Rome's Christianity, which came later. I keep explaining. The wave of Vatican Rome's Christianity that started to come over to Britain in the 500s-600s. The Roman state's Christian religion was very different than the Christian religion that would become the religion of our world today. So this surviving is a great contrast to the other religion that is to be found in the house, the household god religion, the religion of the nymph, the water and household deities, to be seen in their awe in a state of place within this building, alongside the state of place that is in fact the Christian faith. Remember, Christianity was a cult. With all cults, you can have another cult. You can worship this God, you can worship this God, we'll keep this God happy, and we'll keep this God happy, and we'll keep these ones happy as well. So it's not a pantheon of gods in the Christian faith in the 400s, but before that, it is a pantheon of gods. Christianity is one of the pantheon of gods in a house. And then eventually somebody knocked the door and said, right, you've got to hide the fact that you're a pagan and a Christian, right? You can only now call yourself a Christian. So these other pagan temples were hidden within a Roman home. But no doubt, because we're damnable Britons and we've taken on Roman ways, we're not actually going to let the Romans tell us completely what to do. Whenever you look at the Roman world in Britain, you always think that they're fully Roman, that they've fully taken on every single facet of the Roman world. In fact, people in Britain did take on the Roman world, but not every single facet of the Roman world. Bits of our language survived. Bits of the way we thought. Bits of the way we traded. Bits of the way we dressed. Bits of our religion survived. And it's quite clear, maybe, that the people at Lullingstone were native Britons, taking on Roman ways. And they continued in that ilk. The multicultural, cosmopolitan Britain that we all aspire to today, in fact, hasn't just existed today. We have been a cosmopolitan country for thousands of years, and we see that at places like Lullingstone. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to read what we've got behind us now. This is an outstanding site. This is set within beautiful surrounds in the Darrant Valley in Kent, and it's one of 6 Roman villa sites within that area. The taste and belief of the successive wealthy owners are to be seen with the luxury surroundings that can be found at Lullingstone. Rare paintings, the wonderful mosaics themselves, the wonderful sense of religion there, the artifacts and everything else, today can help us understand Rome, but only by a glimpse. Lullingstone is only a photograph of the past. It's only one photograph of the past. It's not multi-photographs of the past, it's one photograph. So you can only see what you can see at Lullingstone, and then go away trying to see the rest. Nothing was ever done in the Roman world in a moment. It was a consecutive development of ideas within these homes. Again, we just mentioned a little bit about paganism, Christianity. How you one moment have a corner that is a circular sort of corner, and you've got circular buildings, and the idea of the linear line isn't within one's eye, and then the linear line dominates the Roman building. How you build in many different ways is influenced by the backdrop that once was native Britain, that is in fact now Roman Britain itself. So it's a shame that the likes of Lullingstone and Butts are the two sites that we've seen back to back are within that wonderful county of Hampshire. A bit of a distance to go, but I'm sure alongside seeing Fishbourne in Sussex, we might actually be able to get to see those sites one day. Lynn has already volunteered to drive us down in a wonderful love mobile.
You weren't going to tell her.
What you and I get up to, Lynn, I will only share with the room when I need to. Obviously, I'm not going to look away much about this cutaway reconstruction drawing. But it's very similar to the reconstructions that we saw at Butts last week, where we've got sort of pale walls above, we've got like a nice ochre sort of base banding, and these obviously drive into their foundations. One thing that is missing in lots of the reconstructions that you see is actual life. Lots of Roman buildings would have had beautiful gardens, would have had fountains, would have had statuary gardens, would have had walkways, would have had arbours, would have had fruit trees, would have had herbarages, would have had roses. We've got native roses, by the way, but the Romans had roses as well. All these effects are missing when you see reconstructions. But in fact, the evidence is there. Evidence of those wonderful flower beds that archaeologists do excavate. Root systems that we do excavate. We know what the gardens were like surrounding a Roman villa. Were the Romans to be despised in Roman Britain? Well, not really, because we were Roman. We were the Romans, which is a fact. Less than 1% of the entire British population in AD 200, AD 300, less than 1% was actually of Roman stock. Less than 1%. So most of the people living at these sites was of native, standard, Germanic or elsewhere. One thing we do see is the nature of burials associated with Roman sites. Those that may have been to Dorchester will know the house villa at Dorchester. They've got a house villa at Dorchester, and it's there's beautiful mosaics, and when it's closed, you can actually look through the glass around the outside and see the mosaics inside. So you don't always need for it to be open. And alongside the house villa at Dorchester, for those that don't know where Dorchester is, it's near Maiden Castle, on the opposing side to the Isle of Wight, as opposed to going towards the London way. In Dorset, that's where Dorchester is. And along the outside of that building, what you do find is the burials of several young children alongside the outside walls of this building at Dorchester. We're usually told that the Germans, we're usually told that the Romans didn't treat their loved ones with respect. We're told that, particularly their children, they were just discarded. But that's not the case with lots of evidence from Roman Britain. As for their loved ones being buried in really powerful statements of their craft. And what we mean by that, sarcophagi that are either carved in stone or made out of lead. We've got 2 lead coffins that have been found very close to Lullingstone. Those people that once wandered the floor levels that you see today, those people that had the same eyes that you have when you look at the frescoes in those cabinets at Lullingstone. And then, in that moment, the whole thing starts to come alive. You're actually a bit further in the door of that step of distance in time. There are more postcards for you to see. And you can see these people. You can see their bones. And you can understand a little bit more of who they were. I really like when you have colourful plans. And what you have when you're looking towards this wonderful Roman building, and you're looking at about the year 350 years AD, when you may enter the building, and if you wanted to visit the pagan sort of basement temple, you could do. If you're a Christian by that stage, you could go to the Christian house church. Maybe you'd like to go to the bath suite. House church, pagan temple. Let's go to the bath suite over on the left here. Let's actually go to sleep in one of the heated rooms, either on the first or the ground floor level. But before you actually enter this building, you're to be met with one of the wonders that is the Roman world. Light, illumination, art and architecture, a place of the Roman world within your own heart and mindset. As you enter this building, along maybe it was an arbored area, or it's an open area. Along the left and the right, you're finding flower beds, those wonderful roses, those scented roses. Remember, the temperature back in the Roman world is 1.5 degrees warmer than it is today, and therefore you're able to grow different plants. Maybe over there, you could see a fig tree. There would definitely be grapes growing. We know that. We know that there's grapes growing in Britain before the Romans have come over here. We know we're growing grapes in Britain today. A temperature of about 1 degree higher would mean that grapes would grow beautifully within the Kent landscape. Small apple trees as well, so you wander down. You've got these steps. We know there were steps there. Going up here, and there's a bit of a veranda area. Are you going to break? Suddenly the door opens and you enter into this aisled area, this sort of enclosed area with some light. And the light is coming through these windows here and the open door, and there's frescoes on the back wall here. And there's 2 large oaken doors, exactly the same ones that they found within the archaeological records at Herculaneum, perfectly preserved, big oaken doors. And then the magic is to be revealed. The oaken doors are opened, and suddenly, with the light, the light blinding you, the light from this outside structure behind, and the light coming from above all the way around is blinding you. You're forced to look at the floor, and that's the illumination. The mosaic on the floor. You're forced to look at the floor. You're forced to get an idea of who these people are. This is the entrance. This is the dining room. This is the place that you make your entrance. This is the large reception area. And do you know what? Every moment of the time as you enter and you stand on the mosaic, there are people looking at you from this area. On their chaise lounges, they're looking at you. They're seeing you enter this room. And suddenly you look up and your eyes are still blinded by the light behind them. So you look on the right, you look on the left, and you see the beautiful frescoes on the wall. And then your eyes are met by those people looking at you. If they don't want you in the room, they could basically, right, we don't want you, we've seen you, we're not really interested. The whole point of it's almost as if the Romans are given illumination, but at the same time they're controlling you. They're controlling your movements. Your movements are being controlled by what's going on here. You're not going to enter a dining room at night. It's not going to happen. What's the point in having a mosaic on the floor and beautiful frescoes? I know you're going to have lanterns, Get people to come in the day. This is the Roman wool. Get people to come in the day. Because in the day you can do many things. You can then bathe. So this is the effect of the Roman wool, and you will shortly see what this mosaic looks like. Even today, it is a marvel of the Roman world, preserved within the marvels of our modern world today. I'll just chuck this in there. Outside the building as well, there's evidence of mausolea, burial areas for the loved ones. There's evidence of several great temples. And there's evidence as well that when I was asked a question on Tuesday, what exactly happened to the site? Why is it so well preserved? Probably because there was some kind of a landslip. As the site was abandoned, there was some kind of a landslip, and all these the soil probably just spread across the whole site, filled up the walled area, and that's why nobody knew it was there in the 1700s. The area was basically a bit of a bank, a flat field. They didn't know it was there because all the soil had just covered the site and buried it, not forever, but for that ever that took up until 1750 for the site to be found in the first place. Here we go. There it is. We actually have much better images than this. But you can imagine what you're doing. You're entering this area here, and you're seeing this mosaic. And let's sort of, it's a pasty image, this one, but we do have much finer images. So you're coming in from this area here, and it's, when you look at this, it's not regular. It's a very strange mosaic indeed. Because the space over here takes up where some of the mosaic should be. It's sort of, there's symmetry of the building, but there's not symmetry of the mosaic. So where you've got a really thick block of tessera here, you don't have it over here. And the design is quite strange as well. It's not, there's no real sort of symmetry to the design. It's a very British design. This is how we did it. And this is where people are sitting on their chaise lounges. Maybe people who want to be seen are going to be seen on their chaise lounges here. Or maybe at the back of the wall, more like to the back of the wall. The one thing that you don't do with a mosaic, a colourful mosaic like this, I know this is this is mosaic here, but it's not a designed mosaic. You're not going to put your chaise lounges on this. You want to show this off. You spent a lot of money on this. This is your Persian rug of the day. This was a lot more expensive and a lot more valuable than the Persian rug. This took a lot longer to create than the Persian rug, so it's a lot more valuable. You're talking about, to create something like that, the average decent Persian rug about that size today would put you back about 50 grand. So you can imagine the amount of money that would have been required to produce this in the first place. Obviously there's border area, and these people are projecting looking this way with the light behind them, and the light in the eyes of the people approaching this building. Over on the right here, to get access to this building here, initially, this is one of the interesting things, initially there were steps going down from this side, going down here, into this sort of basement area, but they blocked that off. It's given away the aesthetic of what we're trying to achieve here. So they blocked that area off. So the only way to get access to it was this way, down steps, down this way, or then again you could go around the corner, go to the apartment rooms, or you could see the house church, which we've obviously got evidence at Lullingstone as well. Over here as well, now this is an interesting effect, to actually get access to the bathing suite, you've got to actually go through this way and go this way, down the corridor, into the bathing suite. So in other words, you wouldn't really be able to have a bath unless you were invited to do so by these people that were in your way. It's all about access analysis. I've got a master's degree on this, so I do know what I'm talking about on this one. And you've got to go this way. You can't have a bath. You can't go through the luxuries of this building without going this way. You've got to pass these people. So they've got to move their chaise lounges. At your invite, you had to have a bath. At your invite, you had to use this wonderful pagan temple. But you've got to go this way before you can just go down to it. But the people didn't want you to just go down to the pagan temple. Maybe they were hiding something. Maybe this was in the 350s, 360s, 370s, when having pagan gods was unpopular. Things had changed. Things always change with these buildings. things change with everybody's home and building. And the sense of what the building's about changes as well, from owner to owner. It was once believed that this site itself was the dwelling place of the governor of Pertinax, who reigned only for 1 year in 184 to 185. He wanted to claim himself to be an emperor, Pertinax. Unfortunately, it came to a sticky end. It's believed that he owned this building once as well. And we know, because there's a bust of Pertinax has been found here, with a bust of his father-in-law that's been found down here. Some of the most beautiful carved marble busts ever been found in Roman Britain. These are some of the firsts that we do see with a Roman site. What you do see is lots of levels of the building here. So what you've done, you've come up here into this area. There's the mosaic there. This is the side bit. This is where the bath suite is on this side. And if you move up there, you can get an idea that some of the walls themselves still survive up to about 2 meters in height. This is not a site that's been robbed of lots of its material. It's a site that became lost. Obviously, stuff was sticking out after the landslide. That would have been robbed and taken away. For what? Because there's not many buildings around this site anyway. So it's not a site that's going to be completely prone to being robbed. When you get to somewhere like Fishbourne wasn't really discovered until the 1960s, simply because nobody knew it was there, because most material hadn't been robbed from the site. If you go down the road and you see a bit of Roman column that you find with the site of Vericonium, you know that there's a Roman site nearby. You know that they must have come from somewhere. Hint that there's a Roman site there. But with the likes of this site in Lullingstone, they've been completely lost for hundreds, if not 1,500–600 years. Lost in time, lost within those pages of a library that one day you get that book and you find it. There it is there, Lullingstone. Lullingstone. There we go, London. And what you need to do to get to Lullingstone, you go down the Watling Street. So Lullingstone's towards the south of it, near London, Londinium. And if you are a Roman governor, wishing to get away from all the smells and all the horrible things that London was becoming, even in the Roman period, bit of a cesspit back then. With all the sanitation, roads and aqueducts. I'm sure the governor would have enjoyed staying at the Lullingstone Roman Villa as a guest, or maybe he owned it as a year. We don't know. We know that we know that we've got a family bust and one of his busts being found at the site. And if we think about where we are with this site, it's within the heart of Roman Britain. This is where you get the likes of Rochester. Further down as well, you get Canterbury, and then you get the Richborough entrance into Britain itself along the coast. And the fact of the matter is, this is the area where Roman Britain was at its best. It had its iron reserves, it had its timber reserves, it had its agricultural reserves. This had direct access to the continent. This is where the temperature would have been the best. Of course, Cornwall as well. But you could grow everything. You could almost be as if you were in France. And this map itself is a very detailed little map. And do I do it now? I'm going to ask, is anyone a bit hot in this room or not? Is it getting a bit brackish?
And bothered.
I will be back. Do you think you may have been left in this room with me? I would have sold my body for a morsel of bread. My history teacher used to get quite excited by that. Oh God, what have I just said? Right, we won't talk about Barry Boys, it was a bit strange. Right, so this is a really detailed room now, a really detailed map. So it gives you a little bit more information than we've had before. So what have we got? It was discovered in 1750. But it didn't stop those in 1900 from building a sewage pipe through the site. But that was 1900. But they didn't destroy the mosaic or the more important things of the site. So to give you an idea, of this huge mosaic here. It takes up quite a bit of space, as you can see, as you can get a bit of an idea. If you want to look at the key, it gives you a bit of an idea of the key. So obviously this was the main hub of the structure first, and then other bits are being added, and they later on, sometime in the mid 300s, it's saying about the, we're talking by at least the 360s, you've got all this being constructed here, and obviously we go into the later Roman period as well. It's very interesting that in around 360, when they're saying that large chunks of this area dates from, they're saying that about 365 there's an event in Roman Britain called the Great Conspiracy. And the Great Conspiracy was when things really went tits up, mind my French. Roman garrisons turned on the local population. The local population had to deal with people coming over from the continent. There were problems with people within the Scottish landmass. Roman garrisons were fighting against Roman garrisons. Local owners were fighting against other local owners. It's called the Great Conspiracy. But the likes of Lullingstone itself is at its height. It's at its best. Maybe profiting on the bad moment. It only lasted about a year or so, and everything got back to normal again. So if we sort of take some of the site, and we sort of look over this area here. We've got a hypercore system. These are all going to eventually be heated rooms. This is a heated room area, but not the area of the hypercore system and the bath suite. They were excavating over here as well. They found this huge, absolutely massive jar as well. I did have an image of that. I'm not sure where it went today. So you can imagine over here, you've got the house church, which is very near the temple. So in fact, so near the temple, you're thinking that there was a link between the two. It was almost as if, right, there's people coming to the house today, they're Protestants, right? So what we're going to do, all the Catholic icons and all the rest of it, we'll leave in that room over there and we'll lock it, right? So when the Protestants have left, you think, right, we're going to be Catholics today. Oh, the local priest is coming over, so you lock up the Protestant room and you take the priest into the Catholic room. So this is in a way what's going on. They're hedging their best bets. You know, it's like I've been in this situation. I'm sure Pete has, where we've got two women that are part of our lives, Pete. We try and keep both happy, and we've got different hats.
Impossible.
I have tried. It doesn't work. The one always finds out about the other one. But the other one's so in love with you that she doesn't want you to leave. But the one that's so in love with you, you actually want to be with the other one. This is a bit of a metaphor for what's going on with this type of structure. People are hedging their bets. They're trying to keep everybody happy. And look at this over here. Okay, back to what I said. Dining room. You've got to sort of go this way, through here, through this threshold, to go down some steps. So you've got to these people have got to like you to be allowed to go into their bath suite. You've got a huge fuel store, a huge furnace store. Obviously the material's going to be properly chosen. You've got to have materials that are going to burn in the right temperature to create the right heat for the room in the first place. What it's got here, let's zoom in on this a bit more. This is all from the excavated evidence. Location for hot water tank. We know full well that you've got the furnace here, and just a bit further on, you would have a copper cistern, and running off the copper cistern, you would have copper pipes. Yes, they did exist. You'd have copper pipes, and in these rooms, you would have little bowls with taps, on and off tap. And they think that they may have had something like this at Lullingstone. Yes, heated water systems did exist in these Roman buildings. Oh, we actually do have a Roman building. This is the funny thing. I can't remember which one it was now. I was reading years ago, and the archaeologists got really excited. They'd found this Roman villa, and the bath suite was perfectly preserved. It was absolutely perfectly preserved. And they're thinking, wicked, these people must have had a wonderful life. And another archaeologist came along and said, the reason why the bath suite was perfectly preserved was because they built it to get with the Joneses, but they never used it. That's why it was well preserved. They never used it. We've got evidence of them building mosaics, but not actually using them. They just cover them up. Because they just wanted to be like the person down the road, but just didn't. It's like what some people do, right? I think showers are ghastly things. But you have a shower put in your house thinking that somebody else is going to use it one day, and you never do. I use a bath. But the fact of the matter is, I was brought up using a bath. But you might have these things, but you might not use them. But the point back to this is that this bath suite was extensively used. We've got the evidence of extensive burning, an idea of what fuels they would have used. And the caldarium, the hottest room, is obviously closest to where the furnace is. So obviously this is going to be a hot room. Hot room, not a hot bath. That's here. Basically, the floor is heated, the walls are heated, and it would act a little bit like a sauna. This one actually has a hot plunge bath, which is towards the right. So you might use the hot plunge bath, and the warm room, the tepidarium, as the heat starts to reduce and all the heat, hot air is escaping through the walls. And then eventually you come up to the cold room, the frigidarium, and then the cold plunge bath, which is over here. And strangely enough, they reckon there's evidence that eventually people stopped using the cold plunge bath and used it as a large storage system instead. So the Roman Britons had another way of doing things. We're cold most of the bloody year, so why would we jump into a cold bath? So they actually changed the cold bath into a large system. And over here, out of this area again, you've got a large cold plunge bath over here. Changing room, reception room, all this being very important as part of this Roman building. So what we're going to do, I think maybe what I should do is look at one more image and we'll take a break. No, we'll come to those notes later. We'll look at that image and we'll describe what all this is in a while. That's Zeus as a bull, and that's Europa. But we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. Bellerophon over here, spearing the chimera, and we zoom in on this. But what is unusual, and we're going to come back to all this after the break, is the design. There's no regularity with the design. 1, 2, 3 swastikas. There's a few hearts here. There should basically be in balance, a swastika over here. And that swastika should be in the middle.
Well, that one's facing left as well, and the other one's right.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. I've obviously just been looking at these two. You're right. One's left facing, one. Oh, that makes it even more complicated. So yes, that's got another meaning in itself. There isn't actually the meaning whether it's left or right facing has the same meaning. Or maybe there's something a bit more askew there. Well done, Kathy. These are the right facing, and that's the left facing. No, didn't spot that. But obviously, there's no regularity in this. And also, this almost disappears underneath this wall. So this wall has come secondary. And this is obviously a description of what this scene is about. So, last image for now. Are there any questions?
What scale is it? Like the size of the whole thing?
Oh, we can get an idea of scale by looking at the plan. There we go. So what we're talking about, if we take the 5 metre scale there, 5 metre scale, and we put that over there. So you can imagine that the mosaic, if you do that, the actual pattern mosaic is under, if we go that again, is under 5 metres
It's
in
not
width.
bigger than it looks, Sam, 'cause it only looks maybe 3 by 3, that room, in the photo, doesn't it? It doesn't look that big.
It's a lot bigger than it looks, yeah.
Maybe
A
enormous,
lot bigger. This is
It's
impressive.
like a lounge size today.
This is a really impressive room. And I'm glad you asked that question about scale as well. I just noticed something else I want to mention. Over here, a little niche, what they found. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to track down the images. They've got 3 painted nymphs in this niche. That's how you know it was the Nymphium. You've got 3 painted images of nymphs in there. So obviously, it's almost as if there's a sign on the wall saying this is the Heritage Centre, right? There's nothing in the room. You know? So right, are there any questions?
Yeah. What century did Boudicca go bonkers then? Mr. Long?
60-61.
So that was the early days of Roman conquest.
60-61. What we're seeing, what I feel with the Boudicca revolt is that there were a load of really upset red-headed women with long flowing hair, just like Michelle.
Yeah.
And it basically seemed that the people were represented by the name with Boudicans. We're part of the Boudiccan revolt, or Bodician revolt, or the Boudicc revolt. So that's at 60-61 AD. What we're going to take the monies for any trips, any eggs, any kisses that you want from me at the end. And I would mention, if anyone's interested, in our haunted evening, 2nd of August. I know Chris has said that she's already coming along. It starts at 10 o'clock at night. Right, we're going to take a break now. And thanks for bringing the milk, Gillian. I know you just brought it for me. Good. Starry, starry night.
17.
Paint your palace. It's usually
Enormous jumbo bag.
Apparently they're going to last us. Right, I've worked this out right. I think on average we use about 6 tea bags a week, and there's 420 tea bags in there. We take about 2 weeks off a year. So 6 times 50. That's 250. Yeah?
6 times 50.
6 times 50.
Oh, Carl, for heaven's sake.
300.
300, yes.
Right.
300, right? So that'll still be being used this time next year.
Oh, that's okay. As long as they don't go mouldy, we'll be alright.
So we're going to carry on now with this, and it would help if somebody put the actual plug in the wall, but you know, if nobody gets off their rear behinds, then it's not going to happen, is it? You know what I mean?
You got 2.
What's that? I
Go with one. It was nice having a break.
Oh, wicked! I'm working with India on tomorrow. Cool. Right,
Working
with India.
with India.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think his name in India.
It's basically filmed. It's basically filmed interviews with actors pretending to be members of the public, which is being broadcast to the Indian population to give them an impression of what British people are like.
You're doing that?
I'm doing that, yes.
Oh my God.
I thought you meant talking to a woman called India.
No, I did. Well, we've got to connect with India.
So are you supposed to be typical of what
We're supposed to be typical of a Welshman.
Nobody ever want to go here.
You're getting paid to do that?
Yeah.
What, can I do it?
Abby, yeah.
140 quid for 3 hours,
Sounds like
yeah.
a wheeze.
Just talking.
We'd be the genuine article, we're not even actors, we're genuine.
No, we gotta make it up as we're talking. We talked about Brexit the other day.
I can do that.
We talked about what we felt of Brexit.
Oh, no.
And there's me saying I'm for it, and most people in Britain are, and it's given the right impression, I'm sure. Lullingstone Roman Villa, built during the Roman period, as we're aware, is a site that may have started off its life constructed sometime after the Boudiccan revolt. These were wealthy people. They showed everything that Roman Britain should be and was. They had everything that Romans aspired to be in the sense of the building and the evidence that they left behind. It's possible as well that in 185 to 186, the Roman governor Pertinax had stayed there or had lived there, because his statue, his bust, was actually found intact in the wonderful Nymphium, and that was excavated in the 1940s. And his father-in-law, Pubus Helvis Successus, his bust was also found. Stop it!
It's an unfortunate name.
Pubus. His wife was called Intercontinentia Buttocks.
Oh, God.
So obviously this site is very important for being a site that we've got the earliest proper evidence of Christianity. It's not just hearsay. And strangely enough, some time later, the Roman mausoleum was converted by the Anglo-Saxon people moving into the area into a Christian church, which is quite strange in itself. A little bit more information as well. So this is close to all the major areas of Roman influence in Roman Britain. The port access, the major road, Watling Street, that is mentioned in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. We've also got Londinium. It's within a landscape of rich resources that I've already mentioned. And around the site are 6 other villas. And what we do see next, in a few slides, is a true understanding of what those mosaics tell us and what they were mainly interested in. Bellerophon killing the chimera, as I've already said, the chimera, and Zeus, sometimes referred to as Jupiter, seen abducting Europa. But there's a little bit of a tale associated with that. And as I said, it was found in 1750 when fence posts were being dug. And in 1939, they thought, right, there's an important site here because there's mosaic fragments, but it was never actually excavated. It was excavated in 1949. So here we go. So it's a little bit more closer now. And I just so that we got the right slides. There we go. That's what I wanted. So here we go. We've got some idea of their tastes. We've got some idea of the colours. We've got some idea of the wealth and money. And we also know, do we not, that this site itself is not just being adorned with the wealth of Rome in the 360s. And there was a large mosaic before the 360s here, by the way. There's evidence of that. It also tells you that Rome isn't going to go out anytime soon. There's another 100 years of Roman Britain to go, even though by about the 400s it's slowly starting to decay. We've got this wealth here. And it's interesting the Anglo-Saxon people come into the area and use the Roman mausoleum. It's almost as if they understand that there was something important here as well. So look at the design again. There's no real sense of symmetry with this sort of frontage piece anyway.
How do you get away with that? Because if you're the owner, you want like a nice posh job, and people will notice that it's wrong, won't they? Unless it's done on purpose. So,
It was done on purpose. It was deliberately done wrong because it was done on purpose. And why was that? It's obviously what we think we understand what's going on. And you've just said it. We think we understand that it is wrong by the way we're looking at it, right? If there was some kind of code, if there was some kind of meaning to this, it might have been in the right order. Just because it's not symmetrical, it might have meant something. It may have been telling another story in itself. Who are we to say, Peter?
When you say it's not symmetrical,
This area here.
yeah, that's not, is it?
No, it's not.
But before when we were looking at it, it looked like the actual measurement of it was not symmetrical either, but now it does look symmetrical.
What's happened is that what happened is that you've got a big border here and you've got a very narrow border here. So what they've done is they've extended into this area, but the room itself has got a sense of symmetry, but the mosaic hasn't. And then the sense of symmetry changes when it's unbalanced because there's less of a border this side than there is on this side. So you've got all that going on.
It could be just as simple as something like fashion, because there's fashion now for mismatched tiles on the floor. You know, there's lots and lots of different tiles. And
You are very right there. And yeah,
Wouldn't it be just as simple as that?
so look at the designs here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's wrong for a start. And you've got this over here. And you move over to this side. This is balanced. But this isn't really balanced from here to there. The designs are all different. So there's different designs. Yes, you could be right. There are changes. It's been upgraded and altered. And somebody may have thought, actually, you know that over here, it's decayed a little bit, so we'll stick a new design in there. But these swastikas are naturally intriguing. To the Anglo-Saxon, no doubt, these swastikas would have meant a lot more. But the Anglo-Saxons wouldn't have seen this. This would have been covered up by the time any Anglo-Saxons got to the site. The roof would have collapsed. They wouldn't have seen this. And there would have been a landslide as well to cover the site. But again, this all has its own meaning. And there's something else about this. You can't see it when you look at an angle. But for some strange reason, all the tessera along here are missing. Now that's interesting. Why are they missing? Maybe at one stage they decided to build a wooden partition here that meant that this room was separate from this room. There was a different change in tastes.
Would it have been a name of the owner or somebody that got it, commissioned it, and then it was taken out if it was sold or something? Maybe that there could have been some wording along there. It could have said, for example, we are pagans and we're proud to worship Minerva, okay, or Mithras, or Janus, and that was taken out. Again, looking at it another way. That's as interesting. You've always got to look at these in different ways to really understand what's going on.
That's unsettling though. I wouldn't be relaxed if I was looking at a mishmash.
Would you be settled?
To me, it would be just a design thing, because
No, but there is one other thing as well.
there's the harmony in the colours. So
Yes.
No,
There is some harmony there, and they would have been a little bit more brighter. If you polished out, it would be a little bit more bright. There is one thing, my son, right? You are looking at it from above.
Don't criticise you. What is that? What the
No, you're looking at it from above.
Yes.
You're looking at it from above, right? You're not actually getting the full perspective when you're actually down on the ground. Yeah.
On my chaise along.
Yeah, exactly.
If
So-
those swastikas weren't there, I'd be happy with a mishmash. But because those three stand
You don't
out
like
in
the
a
swastika
triangle-
though?
No, it's because those three stand out in a triangle and make me want to see a pattern.
And they are actually
Yeah,
completely.
yes.
Actually, forget about what the meaning of the swastika is. They are very different from the rest.
Yeah.
They are very different.
Those 9 triangles are also in a triangle.
But it was a very ordered world with these people. That's why
Yes,
it's
This is
seems
what-
a bit odd.
But again, you're talking about the Roman.
Mm-hmm.
This is Britain within Rome. They had a different way of doing things
Good point.
always.
Yes, good point.
And we're not living
A different way.
Yes,
So there is one thing as well, is you can obviously tell us that there's this is a suspended floor because it's starting to buckle. It's little bit of subsidence with what's going on with the mortar underneath. So it's a bit of subsidence. So that's another interesting aspect to this. But then again, it's still intact. Again, our swastika's there. Now this itself, tell you a little bit about the story. And I hope, have we all got another 20 minutes, people?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jane?
Yeah.
You're not leaving the room?
No, 20 minutes.
That's it,
I'd
job
like to
done.
get 20 minutes.
Good. And don't forget, I've got to give you your eggs.
Mm.
Now what's going on here? Zeus abducting Europa. Now, Zeus is obviously, Europa's loves this bull, okay? Europa's decided to go off with a bull. She doesn't know it's Zeus. However, there are 2 angels actually saying, no, you're not going off with Europa. We're going to stop you. It's not going to happen.
And it's almost as if this angel is saying, look, mate, you're not going off with Europa, we're going to stop you. And you can see this with the design. Europa's looking sort of a little bit pensive, a little bit innocent, but I think she knows what's going on at this stage. Is she going to jump off? Is she about to jump off the bull? What's going on here? But the other story, and you can the thing is, right? You're looking at this from an angle, right? And you see that space there. It looks a lot more narrower than when you look at it from above. So, and the reason why that is, and why is that, is because this is slightly raised over this. You're looking directly down on it. This is actually a tiny little bit of a ledge, and that's coming into the image. This is slightly raised over this area. So the whole optical illusion is complete. All of you have been deceived.
Separate rooms and...
It's a raised area, it's a slightly raised area, just slightly raised area. That idea, when I was doing this as my master's degree, when you've got a step, okay, that's a new space. It's a new area. Just a tiny bit of a raise, an inch. That's a new zone, okay, because you've got to move up a level, okay? I know it sounds silly, but it's not. If you've got somebody...
Gives the people on the chairs an added bit of power then against
Yes, and it's a little bit more raised again. All that shows on, it's more raised. It's more that sense of power. But again, the one thing that's never happening, you're never covering up this design. You never have your chaise lounges on these designs because you want to show them off. You know, my parents have got a Persian rug, right? And you know, they've got a table on it and stuff, and I'm thinking you should be able to see that Persian rug. But then again, that's a different way of looking at things. Now this is the other design. So as you enter the room, this is the first design you're looking at, okay? And how are you? And the other thing as well is, right, how are you looking at these designs? That's key as well. As you enter the room, the design is upside down.
That's not right. Oh, that's not right.
You're entering and it's upside down. Surely if you're entering a room, it should be in front of you to read. This is the course of action. You're reading the history. It's actually upside down. So your mind is already... You're already confused in the room as you're looking at the floor, and even before you get up and look at the walls, you're thinking, what is this? And you've only got access to understand this is if you've got your back to the people who own the building. And if you turn your back to the people who own the building, you're showing complete contempt and disrespect for those people that own that house, and you all know it. You don't go into a building and say, "Oh, hi guys," and they're talking to you with your back to them. Even today, that's the height of rudeness. So in other words, Jane, Jane definitely tied into this, and so are you, Pete.
Unless it's just that they're so selfish that they only want to look at the...
It's a
Design
separate... I'd say
themselves.
it's a separate room. It's
Almost
difficult to get
redesigned it.
different
It came from a
levels.
different
Yeah.
way, but when
same
it
levels
was
if there's a wall in between,
Yeah.
be it wood or whatever. That's what I'd say.
Anything, yeah. Anything. The original idea of the root screen. What I'm doing, I'm just trying to get this simple today. And even trying to get it simple has got really complicated and expanded, which is great. That's fine. That's what a mosaic's for. And this design now, you're looking at this design from above, this side as you're coming in. The people who are looking at you know what this design is because they can see it, because they overlook it from the stage. All these things are working. And this is the chimera, the chimera. Basically, it's more like a lion to me, actually. But a chimera is basically a winged beast with a snake's serpent's tail. And here is Bellerophon on his winged Pegasus, lancing this beast here. And there's sea creatures around the outside, so it's a very strange thing. And these almost look like they're tied loaves of barley. A bushel of barley. Two bushels of barley on a mosaic. What's going on here? Again, it's a British design. British designs of mosaic are very different from continental. This looks Roman. All that sort of looks Roman, but when you put them in and you start to move in, the designs get very strange. And the other thing as well is, did this person know what a sea serpent looked like? No. So they've just made it up. But the people
And the other thing as well is the horse looks really good, but the proportions are wrong. The front hinds are very different from the back hinds, for example. These are much longer. Very interesting design, but don't overanalyze it. But it's telling you a lot. This is actually the Roman villa at Bignor, which is not too far away. So what we're talking about is under most of these mosaics, you have a suspended floor like this. Underneath that is the hypercore system to heat the floor, the suspended floor. And obviously the heat is exiting through the walls. This is at the Roman villa at Bignor. There's so much to see in Hampshire. Hypercore system, 12 minutes to go, folks. Hypercore system, the heat is, this is in the bath suite now. This is, the mosaic is here, bath suite here, and obviously accommodation over there, the solar over there. So this is the big furnace here. This is where you're going to find the coldarium itself there, and you're going to find the big cistern, and then the copper pipes go around. I know it's difficult to get your minds around, right? But I've seen it in action. You've actually got taps. 2,000 years ago, people are turning taps on and hot water's coming out. Can't get my mind around that. But a lot of the remains. This is on the opposite side again. This is that sort of nymphium here. Alongside it is the heated rooms, more of the hypercore system. Walls up here, 2 metres high. There's only one way these walls have survived, is that there must have been a landslip, and there's a tiny bit of evidence for this at the end. A landslip has covered the site. Again, you're not naturally able to wander all the way across the site. You don't really with many Roman sites. You've got to look above them and look through. And I know we've already seen this, but again, giving you an idea, you're going up here, mosaic and so on. Lots of natural light in there as well. We've done that, and a little bit more about the shrine itself. I'll go with my notes on this. So when we think about this strange little room that they found in 1949, that's the first room that they found, and also in that room itself, that subterranean room, it was adorned with painted plaster on the walls. If you were meant to go down there and see what was there, and the well and the nymphium and all the rest of it, it may initially have had light from above as well. However, there's a floor above later on. So it's an enclosed, sacred, special area with its own well, having an area that's dedicated to water deities, and actually having water there as well must have been absolutely magical. With the lights on or with the lights off, sat there with a niche in front of you of the water deities and the statues of the ancestors. Pertinax came here. You've got a statue of. By the way, Pertinax decided to make a bid to become Roman emperor against Commodus, but he didn't succeed. But his bust is still there, and he would have been one of those ashamed Roman governors of Britain. Because he decided to march on Rome, but his statue was still there. The evidence of the Christian house church is a unique discovery for Roman Britain, and the wall paintings of international importance. You can say that this is one of the most important Christian relics ever found in Britain, and it is because it's the origins of real Christianity in Britain. Roman Christianity, not Romans. Not only do they provide some of the earliest evidence for Christianity in Britain, they have close parallels with a site excavated in Syria. So it gives you an idea, that there's evidence of a site in Syria that's similar to the site at Lullingstone. Ooh. What's going on here? Maybe the people had relatives in Syria, or maybe they came from Syria. Another clue. Maybe they moved in and they came from Syria. We might one day be able to work out who bought this property, because they have found 1 or 2 tablets in the excavations in London to tell you of exchanges of land. There was a land deed that they found on the HS2 project, I think, and it basically said, this land, I think in Sussex, belonged to so-and-so, and I decided to convert this land to somebody else. It's quite possible one day, maybe, don't know. And we've got some little bits of evidence like that at Vindolanda. We know names of people at Vindolanda, families and all sorts of things. So the one thing, are they hedging their bets? But the main thing, they want to keep all the gods happy by clinging on to their old pagan temple building. Because the one thing is, right, How do we know that they were worshipping the two gods at the same time? When they excavated the site, the Nymphaeum was still there, right? With a painting still on the wall. They hadn't been covered up. It was still an active room with layers that still dated with the layers found associated with the Christian church. So in other words, vis-a-vis, they're being used at the same time. The religions don't fall into one and one another. They're operating exactly at the same moment. A few more images, a few nice images coming up for the last 8 minutes or so. So here we go. What we have there, the excavations in 1949, and one thing that you can see very apparent is that from very early on, and I never make enough of this, but one thing I'm reminded of a publication that Michelle purchased about a year ago from Mary McLagan. She was Christian McLagan. She was a Scottish archaeologist in the 1800s, right? Michelle managed to acquire one of her books. Strangely enough, inside the book was a letter written by the archaeologist herself from the late 1800s. Women have been an active role in archaeology from the late 1800s onwards. So it's a profession that takes in both men and women on the same level. It's one of the only professions that have been for both sexes from very early on. And this is what I'm finding. There's actually more women in archaeology than there are men now. So you can see women excavating there in 1949 in their long dresses. Mind you, the men are in their long trousers, really dressed up in the summer months. And they're excavating the main rooms, the Nymphaeum, some of the hypocaust areas as well. And this is a nice image of all the images. It shows a bit of a hypocaust system looking over the site, the levels of archaeology that are still there. The little niche there, fortunately I couldn't get the image of the three figures, but they did actually find the three figures in the niche itself, and there would have been wooden stairs. Originally there was access this way from the main dining room, across the mosaic and so on, but they blocked that up and the wooden steps then going down. Again, looking down at that, getting you an idea of perspective, very faded image in a way, but the well there, the wonderful level. Years ago I used to think, whenever you look at a Roman site, you're only going to find that much of walls, not that much of walls, that we occasionally find at Binchester and Vindolanda. There's that wonderful niche. And the niche still used at the same time as Christianity. Coming to the end of these images now, this is what you're looking at with the field. There's the museum, there's Lullingstone underneath. They're excavating there this year, now, this moment, this second. Paul Wilkinson is still excavating there. I haven't spoken to him for years. But you can imagine, if you take that away, how would you know there's a Roman villa there? It's found by great accident. And it's one of those great areas of resources in Britain. Again, look, we've already seen that. And now you can see it. You can see the apsidal building there. And you can see that there's a slight raise there. You can actually see it there. You can see it, and that's the one. There's that little bit of wall coming across here, little bit of wall coming across there, and that's that large mosaic. And this was in 1949, and I'm sure. Could you imagine them excavating there in 1939 and finding a swastika? If Germany would have won the war, that would be proof that there was a superior race. That would be archaeological evidence that the Anunnaki would have used to say that that we've got a pure Aryan race being indicated, actually in Britain, indicated by this site at Lullingstone. Thank God this was excavated in 1949 and not before. This would have proven what the Anunnaki was saying was correct. It's not actually saying what the Anunnaki was saying was correct, because the symbol of the swastika was used to mean various different things by the Romans. Peace, prosperity. But you've got, now I'm a bit confused now. Thank you, thanks for spotting that, Kathy. I thought when you look at something, I all thought they were all right facing and one's left facing. What does that mean? Something different. Or maybe they just didn't care, Pete. There you go, that again, a little bit more clearly. And we've got a reconstruction drawing. Whether it looked like it is difficult to tell. We know that the lower walls would have been rendered on the outside with a nice ochre colour to it. was some steps. From other evidence, even with the likes of Llantwit Major, we know that 50 years before John Story excavated in 1886, 1887, we know that there were columns, large columns on the surface still lying at Carmead until they were taken to help rebuild the farmhouse. And then by the time John Story got there in 1886, they were gone. So if we look at that evidence and chuck it in there, that's not going to be too far out. Obviously, the hot air escaping through the roof. And I think this illustration's underdone because there would be a lot more going on there than. And obviously the temple behind, subsidence covering the site. Still using geophysics now to understand and survey. And this is the excavations. This is the excavations now in a field very near the site. And that's Anne Wilkinson, the wife of Paul Wilkinson, excavating at the site. She's excavating in some kind of a ditch associated with Lullingstone. And this is very important. Nearly the last images now. You look at this and you see this thick layer of clay above this collapsed wall, indicating after the timber had rotted away on here, there was some kind of subsidence event, a thick layer of clay spread across the site, burying it for over 1,000 years. Now this answers where we see the site. And this is, I think this was actually excavating last year, so we know what happened to the site. That's answer the question. Why is it so well preserved? Subsidence from that sort of temple area above it, so all collapsed and spread down. It may have been because the Anglo-Saxons used the site above, and there was some kind of a storm. It was very boggy, and it all washed down, all the thick clays and stuff. And looking down there. So talking about, Pete, those are collected from the field, nodules of flint, and they've got the rammed material in between to create the wall. Mortared walls, but these are field stones that have been collected. And they've got the large masonry stones that have come in from elsewhere. You can go there today, and you can obviously see lots of evidence, a couple of sets of skeletal remains being found at the site. They're finding more and more all the time. And, oh, hang on, 3 last things. That wonderful reconstruction, very similar to Alan Sorrell's work. You can see the temples behind. This is lower down. Another perspective. Actually, more looking to what I want to see. The bathhouse, hypocaust over here, and more ornate gardens leading to the site. And the Place de Resistance. That's Publius, the father-in-law of Pertinax. The marble bust is worn away, but look at this. Oh, hang on, there. Hang on, what other slides have we got left? Hang on. Right, we've got 2 slides. Hang on, we'll do that in a sec. Some artefacts found at the site, another view of the hypocaust system, and there you go. Little bits of painted plaster, box tile there, flue tile, very thin, very small, so they want to reduce the amount of air flowing. Lots of painted plaster, long nails, a metal peg as well. And that looks like it's a piece of lead piping there as well. So all these things they've been finding, and the last image today is actually this one. Can you imagine finding that in 1949? Absolutely perfect, except for the nose. It just fell over, the nose broke. But this is the bust of Pertinax, giving you an idea. Pertinax, whatever happened, right? Pertinax had some link with the site. They could have been directly related. Because what happens when a governor's shamed, or when a Roman emperor's shamed, you get rid of your association with that person straight away. And it might be the only people who actually have kept this bust may have been this direct family. We'll put it down there in a few years' time, they're not going to know. Nobody goes into the Nymphium anyway. So beautiful bust. So what we're going to do there is, are there any questions? Have you all enjoyed that today?
Oh,
I'm glad you've enjoyed that today. Thank you very much, and I will see you all next week. Thank you very much.
good show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Look, the other week we had 16 minutes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
That's not bad actually for midsummer.
Thank you very much.